Into another episode of Strategic Moves. I'm your host, Kenn Dowell, and today we're going to continue our conversation on Brotha, Can We Talk? Brotha, Can We Talk was a conversation or a series that we put together because we felt that there was a need for African American brothers to get together and talk about issues that are affecting our community, but moreover, that's impacting the African American male. And in doing that, I put together a series and invited some brothers out that I knew who had impact in our community on various different topics. And so today I brought them all out for everybody, and we're going to have a cigar, smoke, food, drinks, and talk a little bit about some of the topics we had over in that discussion. So today, without further ado, we're going to get right to it.
You ever had a felony, whether you went to prison or not, you can't get a job, you can't get housing. I couldn't get insurance when I came home. I did 26 years. I've been home 3 years. I couldn't get life insurance, right? That's a collateral sanction. It's an extension of the punishment that you were supposed to serve when you went to do your time or your probation or whatever. And it's not right, and it makes it hard for us when we come home to try to live a productive life. It took me a year and several letters from mayors and councilmen and all this just to get a place to live. So one of the main things that we do in Building Freedom Ohio is address those policies, because every day they're making policies to try to keep us under their foot. The criminal justice system is a money maker, and every day they're looking for a way to make money off our backs. The backs of black men specifically, but brown and black people in general. So one of the main things that we're doing is trying to attack those collateral sanctions. We do that through vote. In Ohio, one of the few states that you still allowed to vote. In case y'all don't know that, and make sure y'all register as a felon. So they did a good job of putting that F on our back. Now we about to do a good job of making them pay for putting that F on our back by coming together as a unit and using our voting leverage to start getting policies and stuff changed.
That's good enough for us. Let's get started.
As well as this event. And I kind of shared with Kenn on the podcast, and you can check it out if you like, that somehow I got to be the relationship guru simply because my wife stayed with me 49 years. So I really think she's the one that should do this podcast, because I ain't been no perfect dude, okay?
But that's right. We're none of us perfect.
And it's simple, it's not hard, all right? But it's become complex over the years because of some of the things that Brother Will talked about, some of the things that we know exist in our community, and it's so easy to throw a brother under the bus. I mean, it just happened daily, all day for 400 years in this country. And so relationships are the primary asset in a family, in a community, in a nation, in a world. And so if we can destroy the primary asset, then we can get at everything else. And so when your relationship is tight and intact, and it fulfills those things within you and your partner, then it allows you to go out and be a champion in the world. And so if we get the fundamental thing right, is that's ourself and how much we love ourself, because we can't love God and then not love ourselves. And we can't love God and then not love our partner. So if we get the fundamentals right, then we can build something strong.
I had a lot of help, and I had a lot of resource. I had a lot of support, and I'm trying to create avenues and create opportunities and use influences and a lot of different relationships to create those for our young people today. So that's what I've attempted to do over the years in Cleveland and Cuyahoga County and San Francisco and back, and just try to create that.
When the welfare folks came by to check, which started breaking down that whole family structure. See, all families are not married families. Some families, mom and dad, just don't get married, but they're in love and they provide a nurturing environment. So the question I have is, how are we gonna get back in the room so that when decisions are made, they're not made by people who have good intentions, but also have some practical reality about how families should be structured. How are we going to get back in that room?
All right, Richard, I think the millennials have a different perspective.
It's your fault.
I told you.
All right, go ahead.
It's your generation fault. And what I mean by that in a positive way, but also coming direct, is the fact that you were in the rooms making those conversations, tea parties, conversation. I look up at the ward that I serve, which is Ward 5, and it's almost
setting that it shows that if you're not poor, you can't live in my ward. When 72% of the zoning that has been done in my ward, in Ward 5, is for semi-industry or multi-family industry. So that means put everybody that's poor in one area and let them just destroy each other without having hope. Where was the resources? Where was the fight for ending the redlining that took place? Where about the government and those who had the power back then to make sure that we don't have to hide the father that's in the household? To make sure we won't have this trend that we see today, in which you have people in relationships in a family or guy and a female are dealing with each other for 10, 12 years, and this kid and this guy don't even have a relationship with the son that's in the house, but he still come on every night. So what I mean by that is, when a generation that came before us sometimes make mistakes, they probably didn't have everything right, but it's up to us now, since we got the knowledge, to correct those things, because we shouldn't be in the neighborhood of Ward 5 where everybody in the projects is just surrounded by each other, doing whatever they want. We lack the resources. We lack the neighborhood access to good paying jobs. But then you also think about the fact that they don't even want to bring mortgages or give you loans to be able to buy a house just because of the area code that you live in. So what I mean by that, not particularly you judge, but overall, the culture back then was like, hey, we're going to allow this to pass over. One interesting story that I could talk about that happened to me this day, when I first got in office earlier this year, it was a bond sale transfer going over for Garden Valley, Rainbow Terrace. And what happened was, back in '99, when the guy Arthur bought the property, he did a good service by bringing social services needs to the community. When he decided to do that, he had nothing in writing. He said, you know what, I'm going to just fund $400,000 to social services needs in this neighborhood. Now, 20-something years later, when he's trying to sell, I'm like, no, you can't just sell to anybody. I need to know if they're going to keep these resident services. There's nothing in writing for me to bark, so I'm barking and fighting them. And I'm like, well, what about the leadership before me? They never understood the need to have these services. So when we keep being slate, or we just don't turn the blind eye, or if we're not going to put in the work, we shouldn't be in politics, because things like that shouldn't happen, in which I had to fight back and forth, down to the last day before the contract expired, before we came up with a solution to pass a piece of legislation for the bond sale, or the city would have lost some money. But it's those things that happened long before, you know, I was born in '88. I'm proud of my millennialness. And born and raised and graduated from King Kennedy. I grew up in the LAJ era. I grew up in the blues, the Laney. I've been all through Dowell Way doing anything, Lord knows what. I wasn't one of the kids that was sheltered. I'm the second oldest of 6 children, 4 boys and 2 girls, 4 baby fathers my mom had. So I am a product of my environment, but I got educated to now help my neighborhood. I can't be on the sideline if I'm not going to help myself while I can help the neighborhood.
That's why I like this brother here, man. I'm telling y'all, he's going to be all right. Reverend Matthew.
You know, it's invaluable to have these conversations because, as the judge stated, some of us had access to great minds.
So what I want to talk about today is something that's really, really, really important. I want everybody to kind of really listen to this. It was some statistics that came out, and I got these statistics the other day. In the city, in Cuyahoga County, we done had 160 murders in Cuyahoga County just this year, since August. 160 murders in Cuyahoga County. Out of Cuyahoga County, 124 of those murders occurred in the city of Cleveland. Out of this 124 murders that occurred in the city of Cleveland, African Americans made up 111 of those killings. When you break down that number versus males versus female, there was 103 murders that were just African American males. There were 21 murders that were women. When we go down to the very statistic versus white versus black, there were only 10 murders on white folks in this county this year. 10. So when we sit up here and we talk and we're doing this, I know the reason why I put the podcast together was that I worked years of going around working with elected officials, getting them elected, judges and everyone, to try to make a change in this community. And it seems like it just wasn't doing nothing. And it seems like we wasn't going nowhere. So I decided to do this podcast because I don't have the solutions. Like my man Satino said, he's bringing in some solutions. We'll see. But I know I don't have them. But I do know that I am an organizer by trade. That's what I do. And so it was best for me to continue to do the things that I do best, and that is to organize brothers, bring us all together so we can have conversations. Because
This is Strategic Moves with Kenn Dowell.